I'd like to call this meeting to order. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Waki, Ottawa, and Mississauga peoples. Confirmation of the agenda that the Council of the Township of North Huron accepts the agenda for July 19th, 2021 council meeting as presented. Do I have a mover? Deputy Reeve Sight moves. Councillor Faulkner seconds. Cheers, Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Deputy Reeve Sight.
Yes.
Councillor Falconer.
Yes.
Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. I personally am going to make one for number 7.8.4, and in the bylaw 11.3, I will be handing the meeting over to Deputy Reeve Sipes at that time. Public comments. This is an opportunity for any member of public to speak to an item on business of this agenda. 2 minutes per person. Is there anyone out there in the audience who would like to speak to anything? Carson, I'm not hearing any. Thank you very kindly. Consent agenda that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby adopts consent items 5.1.1 and further that the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives consent items 5.1.2 and 5.3.5 for information. Is there anyone before I call the vote would like to speak to anything on that? Go ahead. I'm going to start with Kevin and then over to Paul.
Thank you. Through you, Reeve. Yeah, it's the 5.2.2, the Recreation and Community Services Activity report for April and June. Many times through the report, it alludes to the Recreation Master Plan. We've never had that presented towards the council, so I just was curious as to when we might be able to see that report.
Jamie, can you answer that one if you're on?
It's actually Vicky, Your Worship.
Sorry, Vicky.
It's okay.
Vicky,
It's okay. Through you, Your Worship, the Parks Recreation Culture Master Plan is still being developed. It is planned to be presented to council in October.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Heffer?
Thank you, Reeve. Yeah, this is for Vicky. Again, it's 5.2.2, and it's the bottom of page 1 of your second part there of RC 2021-11. I'm just wondering if you could just explain a little bit of that to me. You said it has 257 pre-authorized members at the end of 2020, right? And now it's 98?
Correct. Through you, Your Worship, that's correct.
Okay. It says non-resident usage is 48%. Is that still the same with the 98 there?
No, that was through Your Worship. That is prior to the non-resident fee being implemented. What it is just stating that basically our programs are made up of approximately 48% are non-resident participants and 52% are resident participants.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Deputy Reeve Sight, and then Anita Van Hittersum will follow.
Just to follow up to that question, Reeve Bailey, just to follow up from Councillor Heffer's comment is the 200, we don't know, or at least I have not been told, and Vicky, maybe you can respond, is prior to COVID, 257 people were on pre-authorized payment. We don't know why, we don't know if it's related to the non-resident fee or strictly COVID, that the people are now 90 and that have pre-authorized to 98. So I just want to make sure we're not commingling the discussion about COVID and and the non-resident resident fee. So can you just make sure, Vicky, am I under the impression that we don't know why they're now 98? It's just that's a statistics that we have.
Through you, Your Worship, that's correct. That's correct. We don't know if it's because of the non-resident fee or if it's COVID related. The purpose of putting that in there was so that council realizes that our membership has decreased significantly, and it's going to take us a while to build that back up, and to point out that there'll be a shortage of revenue.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment too. I just wanted to comment. I said, I mean, I completely understand. I want to thank the recreational staff and Vicky, yourself, and the group for providing these information, because I think it's vital for us to understand some of the statistics. We need to clarify ultimately what the statistics tell us and make the proper understanding of how we're going to change or implement different processes or policies. I think ultimately, from my perspective, if your comment or your thing is, if these people, the 48% of the people who are non-residents, if they choose not to come back, the answer is not it may have a financial impact. It will have a financial impact, period. I mean, ultimately, that will be a relating factor that we have to decide how important this policy is. So, I mean, I just want to thank staff for providing the feedback that they're getting to us so that we can understand our policies and ensure that we're making the right decisions going forward.
Through you, Your Worship, if I may comment just a little bit further on that. We realized we threw some numbers at you, and, we were hoping that this fall we'd have an opportunity to provide some more detailed numbers. It's been kind of a waiting game to see when we were going to reopen, and, could, figure out kind of where we stand with things. But there's a lot of things that come into play here with the facility, and we have the Morris. We're going to be Morris Turnberry will not be contributing toward. I don't believe they'll be contributing toward recreation this year. So, that's a significant loss of revenue. But we also have COVID. That's resulted in us being closed for a good portion of the year. But also there's the non-resident fee as well. And when we're talking about participation levels, the participation levels, it's kind of interesting across the board, whether it be childcare services or over to recreation. There are some similarities in the split in numbers on non-resident and resident participation. But from a recreation standpoint, what we're really concerned about is that, we have to run our programs on a break-even basis. And quite often it's the non-residents who will participate in those programs that allow them to meet that minimum number. And that we're really concerned about that. We provide a variety of programs and activities, and we're worried that if we lose those participants and things, that we may not be able to provide as much variety or as often as people would like. I mean, for instance, we were trying to reach out and do those outreach programs down in Belgrave and down in Blythe as well. And we know that there were non-residents that were participating in those programs, but that's part of what offsets the cost to the North Huron taxpayer when it comes to programming and things. So, when we're thinking about money and we're thinking about budget, there's facility operations, and we all know that the facilities do not break even. But then if you look at our programming end of things, our programming does, and is able to carry itself. And now we're concerned that with the fee that's in place, that's going to impact it. We're worried about COVID impacting the programming and our ability to raise or generate the revenue to produce the programming that the residents want. It's just a number of different factors coming at us right now.
Just going to follow up on that before I go to you, Anita. So in the paper last week, you will see where Vicky had mentioned that Morris Turnberry pulled all funding now. We believe it'll be all funding. So we used to get $110,000 a year as a donation towards the arenas and everything from Morris Turnberry. Had for years and years and years. But this sitting council is pulling that $110,000 away. And they said it was because we weren't using the arena. So let's be very clear about this. In the paper last week, it says Morris Turnberry are going to take some of their subsidy money they're getting from the government, and they're going to pay Brussels, Belmore, and Belgrave arenas, and they're going to help them because COVID-19 shut them down. But they clearly told us that they were taking the money away because COVID shut it down, and therefore it shouldn't cost anything to run. So I really want to stop talking about how we have to suffer or we have to pay for Morris Turnberry residents to come to our facilities when it's their council that pulled the $110,000. If I sound angry, I'm getting a little tired of saying this. Their council pulled all the money away, all the money away. Their residents need to go to their council and their council can explain why they did that. Because as we're clearly told, 48% or whatever it was of the people that come to our facilities are from their area. And they depend on our facilities and our staff to keep this going. Enough, guys. They don't want to pay for it. That's their council's problem. We are not the bad guys, and I'm tired of being placed as the bad guys. We're not. We have the facility, we share it with everybody, and everybody helps pay. And if you don't, it can't be there. As Vicky just said, now maybe even North Huron may lose this because there's not enough money to keep it going for everybody. Or we can just reduce staff and just run it for Wingham Ward, Blythe Ward, and East Wawanosh and be done with it. We don't have to keep the staff standing around if we don't need it for the other members that don't want to belong to it. Okay, Anita, your turn.
Yeah, maybe I should put some fuel to the fire. I really would like the public to draw some attention to the reports on the section on the agenda. First of all, I would like to thank staff for their detailed reporting and help make our community such a great place to live. Our streets, parks, and buildings don't maintain themselves. Fire, emergency, they need to be taken care of. Our community centers need maintenance to stay the place we want them to be for sports, leisure, and companionship. The municipality has to comply with federal and provincial regulations. Bills need to be paid to keep taxes down, and staff is investigating grant opportunities. We want our children to be safe and cared for and have something to do during school vacations. To this date, we are looking at 55 building permits with a building value of over $9.5 million. That's more than twice the value of last year. More and more people realize the opportunities and amenities and beauties of North Huron. All these great assets and our small municipal geographical footprints unfortunately keep taxes high. Therefore, I'm very disappointed that North Huron staff still has to listen to complaints about the non-residence fee. Please send your complaints to your own municipality. The taxes for an average $205 home in North Huron are $1,000 higher than that of our neighboring municipalities. I would like you to think about that because the extra maybe 25% you have to pay for a membership fee is nearly as much as $1,000 fee. Despite our differences, we are a community. Unfortunately, municipal borders gave us this very unfair disadvantage. I'm hopeful, though, that a better understanding of why some decisions are being made will bring our community and our neighbors closer together. North Huron is a great place to live. We are open for business, for recreation, for living, for friendship. Thanks.
I would just go ahead, Councilor Palmer.
Thank you, Eve. Yeah, I'm glad that this figure of 48% has been mentioned because I wasn't aware of the full amount. And, you know, I find it as it's a very impactful statistic for us to be aware of for any future discussions. And you're right, Reeve, we're not the bad guy. But because the last or the past agreement had been ended or terminated, I keep asking myself, what, okay, there was no real way of getting that 118,000 or whatever the figure was. So it had to be done in a grant as far as I see it. It's the only practical way. So I just ask, did we, or why didn't we, or did we try? Yeah, it's the only way. And as far as next year goes, I'm hoping we have an agreement, but if we don't, for that particular, like the section F equivalency, we're going to have to ask it in a grant form, and we just have to be big people and do that. I don't know what amount we would receive, but we ask. Thank you.
So I'll just finish off. During the COVID-19 clinic the other day, Neil and Margaret went through. Warden, former Reeve Neil Vincent of North Huron, and we had a chat. He said to me, and I'm going to quote him, he said, "This is why we pay to keep these buildings open. It's for times like this." Not seeing anyone else, I'm going to call, I don't believe I have a mover or seconder to accept that, do I? Carson?
No, you still need a mover and a seconder, your worship.
Thank you. Mover and seconder.
I'll move it.
Site, and I got Chris Palmer seconding. It's all yours, Carson.
Thank you, your worship. So Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you kindly. Number 6, public meetings, hearings, and delegations. We have Christine Zerdo and Alex Hayman, Food Cycle Science Cooperative, Food Cycler Municipal Solutions. Folks, welcome. We have a 10-minute limit for conversations and speeches. We'd appreciate if you'd help us out with that. We have a very long meeting tonight. And welcome aboard. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Reeve and Council. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm just going to share my screen so I can start my presentation for you. Could you confirm that the slides are up for you and you can see everything?
They're not up right now, but you should have presenters privileges now.
Okay, give me just a moment. And are you now able to see my presentation?
Yep, you're good now.
All right, so thanks very much. My name is Christina Zardo. I'm here on behalf of Food Cycle Sciences Municipal Solutions team. I'd like to do a presentation of about 10 minutes, and I'll do my best to keep it at that for you folks this evening. So Food Cycle Science, we're a Canadian company 100% focused on food waste diversion solutions using our technology called the Food Cycler, which is an in-home food waste recycler. We sell direct to consumers through partners like Vitamix and Breville, and we sell to municipalities through Food Cycler Municipal. Our municipal solutions help mainly small, rural, remote, and northern communities keep your food waste out of landfills. We're currently working with 8 municipalities across Canada, from Nelson in BC to Hay River up in the Northwest Territories, and several communities in Ontario, including Killarney, Algonquin Highlands, and a handful of others. So the problem with food waste is that it's avoidable. It accounts for a large portion of household waste, often a majority, and it's made up of mostly liquid, which is heavy, of course. On top of that, food waste in landfills is responsible for generating harmful greenhouse gases. And all of these factors make it so that food waste is a problem that has a strong municipal impact. Now, one of the impacts to municipalities is that since it makes up such a large portion of our waste stream, it causes our landfills to fill up quickly, and there are high costs to post-closure monitoring and, of course, high costs to disposal. we want to extend the lifespan of our landfills as much as possible. The environmental impact is that food waste in landfills produces methane gas, which is a harmful greenhouse gas. To draw a comparison, taking 1 ton of food waste out of the landfill is equivalent to taking a car off the road for an entire year. And in our communities, putting food waste in the garbage causes odors, which is unpleasant for humans, of course, but interesting for animals like raccoons who love to rummage through the bags we leave outside. Now, removing food waste from the garbage eliminates these issues. Additionally, you might not need as much garbage collection. That could save the municipality on hauling and disposal fees, and it could save your residents on bag tags. So we often get asked, haven't we solved this already? There's green bin collection that's common in big cities with infrastructure and high population density, but this is not a solution for everyone. Many people in your community might use backyard composting, which we think is great, but unfortunately that's not for everyone either. It's labor intensive, it's not year round, and the reality is adoption rates are pretty low. And then finally, the easiest solution is to continue to landfill your food waste, but the long-term impacts are of course costly and harmful to the environment. So at Food Cycler, we've proposed a different way to deal with food waste, and that focuses on making it easy to deal with in your home with a great user experience. We've essentially built a small kitchen appliance. It's about the size of a bread machine where you put in your food waste, and that includes meat, poultry, fish, even some bones. And in a matter of hours, you have a nutrient-rich soil amendment that comes out. You've recycled your food scraps into a sterile state, and you've reduced weight and volume by 90%. So the Food Cycler will process on average 1 kilogram of food waste in one cycle, and that cycle takes between 4 to 8 hours and uses less than 1 kilowatt hour of power, so a couple cents per cycle. The result is about 100 grams of dry, sterile soil amendment. You can add this to your plants, your garden, your lawn, etc. The machine can be used anywhere with a plug. Most people store it in their kitchen, their basement, or perhaps a heated garage. Now, from an environmental standpoint, the Food Cycler is comparable to backyard and central composting without taking into account transportation emissions, of course. It represents an approximate reduction of greenhouse gas by 95% versus sending it to the landfill. Now, in terms of economic impact, we can significantly reduce the cost of waste hauling when compared to traditional solutions. You're looking at a savings of upwards of $100 per ton versus methods that involve hauling and processing or disposal. Now, one thing that we've learned from working with municipalities is that residents are very interested in being part of the solution. They want to try new things, they want options, and they want their government to bring these things to their community. With the Food Cycler, you get to bring something innovative and tangible to your residents. They don't need to live in a big city to be able to divert their food waste. We believe that food waste diversion should be available to all Canadians, no matter where you live. But on top of this social pressure is the impact of the regulations that are coming to us here in Ontario. There are a number of diversion targets that I'm sure you know are coming into effect. And diversion isn't easy these days. Most of you are likely aware of the issues recently with blue box recycling. When China shut their doors to our recyclables, many types of plastic could no longer be economically recycled. You're essentially at the mercy of the market. And because of that, we now have more materials going into the landfill than before. So we have to change habits and behaviors, and we have higher disposal costs. With the Food Cycler, you are reducing waste at the source. And we're also focusing on that low-hanging fruit, as I like to call it, because since food waste accounts for such a large portion of household waste, it's the single most impactful strategy to achieving these diversion targets, especially when you already have curbside recycling and leaf and yard waste like you folks do. Now, I mentioned earlier that we are working with several municipalities across Canada. One example is in the city of Nelson in BC. We ran 2 pilot projects with 250 households. They each received a Food Cycler unit. The results were overwhelmingly positive, with an average rating of 4.5 out of 5 stars, and we achieved a significant diversion of food waste. Following the success of those pilots, the City of Nelson voted to put a food cycler in every home in their city of 10,000 people. One of the key points was that the cost and greenhouse gas impact would be significantly lower rather than a traditional weekly curbside collection. So a few months ago, Food Cycler was selected as a semi-finalist for Impact Canada's Food Waste Reduction Challenge. This is a 3-part initiative from the Government of Canada to reduce our country's food waste. As a semi-finalist, we were awarded a prize of $100,000, and we were tasked with finding Canadian municipalities as implementation partners. We're using this funding to invest directly into pilot projects at a heavily subsidized price. We're doing 2 rounds of pilots. Round 1 is 4 pilots starting August 1st, and we're already fully subscribed. And we're doing a second round in Q4 of this year, and we're looking for more partners. So these pilots will help us move into the next stages of the challenge, which come with a $400,000 prize in stage 2 and a $1.5 million grand prize in stage 3. Any future funding that we receive will continue to be used to invest into programs for Canadians, and any municipality that partners with us from stage 1 will have first right of refusal on subsequent funding. So the pilot program is a 12-week project. Residents will purchase a food cycler at a subsidized rate from their municipality. They use the unit, tracking the number of cycles per week. At the end, they get to keep the food cycler, and we ask them to complete a brief survey so that we can evaluate the program. And the results of the survey are also sources of valuable data that can be used to support your municipal waste management decisions. So round 2 of funded pilot programs are available, and here we have some pilot size recommendations. For a municipality of your size, we would recommend the 100 unit program. The funded pilots work based on a subsidy model where Food Cycle Science provides a discount. We add in a federal investment from Impact Canada to get the price reduced by 50%. We then ask that the municipality subsidizes $100 per unit plus shipping. So the resident only ends up paying $150 for a machine that retails at $500. And remember, after the 12-week pilot, the food cycler is theirs to keep. Again, I'd like to highlight these are just recommendations based on our experience. We can, of course, explore other program sizes or adjust the subsidy amounts in a way that is tailored to you. But to give you a bit of insight, we launched a pilot in South Glengarry, Ontario. They have a population of about 13,000 people. They initially opted for a 100 unit pilot, but after just a couple of weeks, they have asked us to send them 250 more units to satisfy the demand. So we would welcome the Township of North Huron as a partner in this food waste challenge. I thank you so much for allowing me to present to you today, and I'm available to answer any questions you might have at this time.
Thank you very kindly. I'm just going to wait for the screen to go down, and we're going to see what the councillors would like to ask or talk about. Okay, Council, I'm going to start with Councillor Falker.
Thank you, Reed Bailey. Christina, I was just curious to find out with the impact of that, all that nutrient sludge, I would say sludge or whatever is removed from, basically it's just emulsifying what you have and taking the liquid out and leaving the more fibrous pieces for the composting. But with that nutrient going into the sewage system and the higher content of nutrients going through the sewage treatment of our facilities, have you been tracing any increase in having, the chemicals that are used to treat this, the sludge, the increase in the affluents going to our treatment plants? Like, is that weighed into that at all, where it's not going directly into landfill? Now we're putting it through our wastewater treatment, which has to be treated.
So there's no liquid. Thank you for your question, through you, Reef. There is no liquid going into the wastewater system using our unit. it uses a steam, so it comes out through filters that have activated charcoal to eliminate the smell, but there's no output of water from this unit.
Other councillors? Go ahead, Deputy Reeve Site.
Reeve, I just have a comment. In my opinion, you know, this is an innovative way that municipalities can definitely rethink about where their food waste could go. I can honestly tell you, I just cleaned out my fridge and it was embarrassing to know how much food waste went in there from fruits and vegetables that have gone spoiled. So, you know, I mean, in larger municipalities, the green bin system seems to be a great option. But I mean, in smaller municipalities like us, we don't have that infrastructure in place the same as they do, and it becomes a cost and prohibitive factor for us. I think there's been even conversations, at least in our municipality, about even quoting it, and we really haven't went there. Now, this is definitely an option, at least in my opinion, something that the municipality should look at. You know, that investment, if we want to talk about strategic plan, is our environmental impact on and the greenhouse gas emission initiatives that we have in the municipality. That, you know, this could obviously provide some payback as it relates to that. And when you talk about the bag tag system, you know, residents are not happy when they have to pay $2.50 for a bag tag. Let's be clear. And if they only have to pay by one every 2 weeks or every 6 weeks, rather than every week, there may be some conversations that's where this could be a very beneficial investment for them as well, at $150 unit for those first 100 people, if that's what the municipality choose to do. So, you know, I would like, honestly, from my comment, I would like to see the staff come back with a recommendation or a plan, because I think it's an important idea, and I think it's definitely an inventive way for us to definitely look at where we are going in our environmental impact to a municipality.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, through you, Reeve, to Christina again. Might be another question that you know, answers itself. But has there been any word through the government of using this program for carbon footprint credits?
Thank you for the question. I'm not sure if that's something that has an option, but I can come back to you on that after some research. And if I may just comment on Deputy Reeves' comments there about cleaning out the fridge. This unit really gets us thinking about all 3 R's, you know, recycle, reduce, and reuse. You know, we're of course recycling and then reusing the soil amendment that comes out of the machine, but it also gets us thinking about reducing the amount of food waste we generate in the first place. I know it does for me personally, so I try to use as much as possible before putting it through the machine.
Anyone else? Christine, I got a couple of questions. Number one, oh, go ahead, Anita. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Deputy Reeve. Yes, Christina, are you working with hospitals and restaurants? Are they maybe in a different program? Retirement homes, stuff like that? Are you working with those people? Because I think it's a very good plan for those schools. I think
Yes, we are. We're working with all of the types of users that you just mentioned, schools, hospitals, restaurants, and retirement homes that are large food waste generators. We do have commercial units that can handle a much larger capacity that are more suited for those types of food waste generators.
Okay. What happens when people put stuff in there what's not supposed to go in there? Does the machine burn, or what happens? If they don't put food waste in it, but put a newspaper in it, or I don't know, a plastic bottle.
It can't handle any plastics, so it does prefer to eat, or it likes a balanced diet of food scraps, but it can handle a little bit of fibers. I put paper towels and napkins in my unit, and the commercial machines can do the same thing, just not in large quantities.
Well, thank you.
Christine,
Thank you.
I hope we're going to see you at the county level. I hope you're going to make a presentation to Huron County on this. I think it's a great idea. to market this, we have a very limited staff, which became even more limited with a few leaving us and with holidays going on. So how are you going to market this? Like, it's okay to say we're going to fund 150 of them, but what happens? How do people get to know it?
That's a great question. So the municipalities that we're working with right now have either assigned a staff member to kind of manage the project, but we have been discussing kind of a concierge service to provide with perhaps an administrative fee where we can do marketing on your behalf and send out flyers, manage the payments from residents, and ship the units to your municipality for distribution. So it's certainly something that we can discuss with staff as part of a recommendation if that's beneficial to you.
I'm kind of with Deputy Reeve Sipe on this one. Go ahead, Chris, if you want to speak first.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve, to Christina. I like the idea, but I also think from a mechanical standpoint, how about the longevity of the machines and who can fix them? Can you answer that?
Yeah, the lifespan of the machine is, we say, between 5 to 7 years. We do have units still out there from when we were first manufacturing about 7 years ago that are still going strong with daily use. So the machine is quite robust. We also offer a warranty, and we can extend that for a very small fee because we do believe that it will last past that 5-year mark. And as for repairs, and what we've done in other municipalities is partner with a local technician who can do some troubleshooting and repairs on the unit. It is kind of pieced together in different ways. So there are certain components that can be replaced if needed. So it's certainly an option that we can explore with someone in your municipality.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Deputy Reeve Sipe.
Yeah, I mean, Councillor Palmer made an absolutely excellent point in the sense that, if it's a specialized piece of equipment, residents maybe feel that it's not as simple as just having this on the side of their countertop, and if it goes bad, what do I do with it? But I also think about it as I would think about this as another appliance. I would use this as another appliance in your home, and you treat it as such. And I mean, arguably, we all have to look at the cost of things, and we also have to look at the savings that we have in doing so. So, if you have this unit and you look at what you're not paying on other things, maybe you use that savings in order to keep it in so that you could replace it if you needed to. But I truly believe, Councillor Palmer's made an excellent point that we're going to have these questions when or if we decide to go with this implementation of this magnitude. We're going to have to answer those types of questions to residents because that's what they're going to ask, and they're going to want to know. They're going to want to make no fault, no issues, because if there is any backlash as to this thing not working or not being able to get it serviced, it is going to get a negative impact to the residents, and it's not going to hold on to the same pressures that we would be able to deal with. So, I mean, arguably, it isn't a piece of appliance. It is a piece of equipment that will have to be, and obviously residents will have to make sure they don't put a bundle of paper in the size of what it normally would do. So, I mean, arguably, it's all what we have to do, and you have it for what you need it for. So, I think, but those are definitely awesome points that Councillor Palmer has brought up.
And no diapers.
Christina, I want to thank you for coming out. I'm going to leave it from what I hear from council. I think I'm going to leave it that maybe you could contact the staff and work out, just have a conversation with them. They could bring a report back. Do know though that we are a little low on hired help right now for loss of one, and it's
So Reeve Bailey, if I can hear, I think you would want to make a motion if you're going to direct staff to prepare a report.
I see Deputy Reeve Sipe making that motion right now. And I see Anita Van Hindersum seconding. And I go ahead, Deputy Reeve Sipe.
I just want to make sure and just for staff's perspective, this would obviously be for to be able to be part of the Q4 initiative, right? So, I mean, that's a discussion between staff and Christina as to when we would need to have that report back and provide us with a solution that we would need to give a bylaw or give something to that investment. So, it's not a means that we need it in 2 weeks, but obviously that's something we would want to funnel through the intention of, and I'm assuming this investment stuff is not going to stop. Q1 or Q4, you may even have one in Q1 or 2. I think we just need to make sure we have the information that council can make a decision and we can continue to move forward.
Carson, I'm going to hand it over to you. We have a mover and a seconder.
So here's what I've captured in just Deputy Reese and Councillor Van Hittersum. If it's not what you're thinking, just let me know. But the draft motion would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby directs staff to prepare a report with a recommendation regarding the township's participation in the Q4 Municipal Cycler Solution Pilot Program.
Not seeing
the mover and the seconder are okay with that? Okay. So if there's no further questions, I'll call the vote. So Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Christina, thank you very much for coming out.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
You too. Bye-bye now. Moving on to 7.1.1, the Clerk's Department. PL-2021-23 Site Plan Control Agreement with Housing and Housing Limited. Location, Concession 9, Part 1 of Lot 1, Plan 175, Blocks D, E, F, H, Plan 173, Part Block K, Plan 168, Part of Lot 93 to 95, Part of Mill Street. Applicant owner, Housing and Houses Limited. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby approves the Housing and Housing Limited proposed site plan control agreement as it applies in concession 9, part of lot 1 and plan 175. Blocks D, E, F, H, plan 173, part block K, plan 168, part of lot 93 and 95, part of Mill Street. And further, the council deems the adoption of the bylaw number 59-2021 to be time sensitive and approves for the extension of the section of 19.1 on the procedural bylaw, allowing for bylaw number 59-2021 to be adopted at the July 19th, 2021 regular council meeting. Do I have a mover? I have Anita moving. I've got a screen up, so Carson, if you see somebody seconding.
Councillor Heffer is seconding, your worship.
Thank you. We're going to hand it over to Monica now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reeve. Good evening, Council. Sorry about having my screen up early there. This is my presentation tonight is on a site plan agreement or an application for site plan approval. As the Reeve has stated, the applicant is Housen and Housen Limited for their flour mill in Blythe. The purpose of the application for site plan approval is to permit an expansion to a loading area at one side of the mill, which I'll show you on a slide in a moment. I won't read the legal description again. The Reeve did an excellent job of describing the location of the property. That's a long one. So as I stated, this is the proposed addition to the existing flour mill. The property is zoned general industrial and designated industrial in the Township of North Huron official plan. The drawings that have been submitted by the applicant have been reviewed by the development team, and the development team is in support of the proposed site plan approval. This slide just shows the location of the flour mill in Blythe. Most of us are quite familiar. The location of the addition will be at this south side of the building. It's an area where trucks will approach the building for loading. And here's the site plan showing the location of the addition. So as you can see, the addition itself is quite small in relation to the rest of the footprint of the building. And this site plan has been reviewed by the development team and myself from planning. In my review, the things that I looked at are compliance with the township's zoning bylaw and general requirements of the township's official plan. One of the requirements coming from the township's official plan was compliance with the provincial noise guidelines, and a report was commissioned by the applicants to examine noise throughout the mill and whether this addition will generate any noise issues. And there was a recommendation coming out of the report that this addition can be added within the guidelines. And one recommendation was for a door to be kept closed within the mill. And the owners and operators of the mill have indicated that that door will be closed, and that they're also looking at some other noise abatement choices that they can make within the mill to further reduce the noise levels. So when it comes to the site plan itself, the development team, including planning, engineering, conservation authority, fire, and others, are all in agreement that this site plan can be approved, and it is the planning department's recommendation that the application for site plan, and this slide here is the grading plan, that these two plans be approved and included in agreement with the owners to comply with the drawings, that all new building will be in compliance with these drawings. So those would be my comments, and I'm available if there are any questions.
Council, is there any questions, concerns, comments? Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, Reeve. As to Monica, nothing to do with the site plan or the control agreement there. I'm in full favor of that. I'm just wondering if we have a procedural thing that we need to adjust, because I'm finding more and more of the explanations coming through as being time sensitive all the time, and I don't want people to get the idea that we're putting things through that faster than they need be, or get it done before somebody finds out, kind of thing. Why is that being added up more and more? I see it all the time, and it happened up in the subdivision, and it just needs to be added more and more to these descriptions that they're time sensitive. But is there procedural things that we can change to make that quicker for them, or that doesn't have to be a problem?
So I can clarify that, Your Worship. So that is the township's procedure bylaw. So section 19.1 basically says you can't adopt a bylaw at the same meeting it's being introduced unless it's administrative in nature and time sensitive in nature. Most site plan control agreements are moving development forward in the municipality, so that's why we tend to have them time sensitive. Others, like other planning applications, for example, we don't have that on there because it's dictated by the Planning Act, but that is something that we can certainly look to if we feel the need to do a procedure bylaw update. I know we discussed at the special council meeting and specifically in relation to site plan control agreements, the delegation of authority to staff. So some of your kind of non-technical, non-disputed site plans, we can move them forward faster without them having to come to council and without Monica having to make the presentation for there to be no concerns. But it's entirely as a result of the current section 19.1 of the township's procedure bylaw.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? Not seeing any, I'm going to hand it over to Carson for a roll call.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Van Hitterson.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe.
Yes.
Councillor Falconer.
Yes.
Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everybody.
You too. 7.1.2 is the planning fees review, 22 to 26 draft planning fees. I'm going to have Carson speak to this and questions and concerns before we pass this one in case there's any So Carson, if you don't mind.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So for a bit of context, so the generally planning fees for all the municipalities are reviewed and updated every 5 years. The fees were last set in 2017 to 2021. So the fees are up for renewal. A similar approach as what was used in previous years was developed, where County Council approved the terms of reference and established a planning fees working group in consultation with the Huron County Clerks and Treasurers Association. So the working group included members of the Clerks and Treasurers Association, and so myself, I was on that for the Clerks and Treasurers and also for North Huron, as well as a number of planning consultants, planning coordinators from lower tier municipalities, as well as Huron County Planning and Development staff, including the director, a senior planner, and a number of planners in the land division administrator. So the working group, what we did was we really looked at comparative municipalities across the province to see the current fees for each type of planning application, and then looked into recommended changes. And really what we were looking for here is making sure that that the fees are appropriately covering the staff time going into these planning applications. And so the recommended changes are noted within the report. And so specifically a 2% yearly increase for all planning fees. And this is what was used in the past 5 years, and it seemed to work well. Another change is splitting consent severances into 2 different categories. One for your technical consents, and then your one for consents for a new lot creation, and with the consents for a new lot creation being slightly more as the increased amount of time required on the planners to respond to concerns and review studies relating to these types of consents to better reflect that. Plans of subdivision and condominium, so increasing the base fee to align certainly better with other municipalities, and then also before the maximum cap was capped at 10 units, and so that maximum cap is now deleted in order to reflect the increasing complexity as these plans of subdivision get bigger and bigger. Of course, they get more and more complex, and for sure the planners and other agencies have to spend more and more time on the files. So the next one here is the increase in the fee for draft plan extension to $2,000. So this is one that specifically comes from the North Huron context with our previous draft plan extensions kind of occurring every so often with the Maitland Estates development. So that is now, the recommendation is that is now $2,000 as opposed to, I believe it's $500 right now. And that certainly reflects every time a plan extension has to come for renewal. Takes a lot to refamiliarize with the files and all the work that goes into it. So it better reflects the time and costs that go into these draft plan extensions. Final approval and phase final approval. So a fee for each phase for approval, and an additional fee if new lots are being created at final registration. Part lot control bylaw, so removal of the discount if it's following a related planning application, and a new fee is proposed to be $2,250 plus $170 for every additional conveyable part. The new fee for $300 for any recirculation. So, and this, I just want to clarify, this is for any recirculation that is at the result of changes made by the applicant. So if a recirculation is required, because at the last minute the applicant is requesting changes, the applicant would then be required to pay that $300 fee. And then finally, removal of the holding symbol. So basically no fee if it's combined with a planning application or if it's imposed by the municipality. So Monica looks like she's still on the call here. So I don't know if she has anything she wants to contribute. Certainly a lot of the changes are from a planner's perspective in regard to the amount of time that comes into reviewing these types of applications. But as for my comments, I guess I'd leave it there at that point.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I'm going to get a mover and seconder and we'll have a conversation. Do I have a mover? I have Paul Heffer moving. Do I have a seconder? I have Kevin Faulkner seconding. I'm going to open it up for questions, comments, or concerns. Not seeing any. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, thank you, Reeve. Yeah, just looking at the draft, I'm just curious why the county gets so much more of the take. Their percentage is most of the time higher.
I'm going to hand that over to maybe Monica. I think it'll be time related. Go ahead, Monica.
Yeah, so I have served on the fee review committee in the past. I didn't serve on the committee this time around. So on that score, I think Carson is very well apprised. But to answer Councillor Palmer's question, what the fee review committee does is they break down the staff time, administratively with council, and every unit is accounted for. And so the portion of staff time or administrative costs that are allocated to the county, often with these applications, there's a greater share on the county side in terms of the hours put in to process planning applications. So that's reflected in the increased share of the fee that the county receives.
Thank you very kindly. Any other questions? Go ahead, Deputy Reeve Site.
I would make the comment too, aren't we getting the services from the county? Like, we don't have a planner on our, like, Monica is our designated planner, but she's a county employee. So I mean, arguably they are providing the majority of the service of these types of fees. So I would not necessarily think that, I'm not surprised that the county portion is higher. Put it that way.
Okay, any other questions or concerns? Not seeing any. I believe I have a mover and a seconder, Carson. It's up to you now.
Yep, you do, your worship. And so the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby supports the recommendations from the Planning Fees Review Working Group as set out in the draft 2022 to 2026 Planning Fees Chart dated July 14th, 2021. So Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Site?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. 7.1.3 is the 2021-20 reallocation of record management modernization funds. That the Council of Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the clerk dated July 19th, 2021 regarding the reallocation of record management modernization funds for information purposes. And further, the council authorizes the $22,800 in modernization funds previously allocated for additional laserfish licensing to be reallocated to set out in staff report CL-2021-20. And further, that the Director of Finance be authorized to make the necessary changes to the 2021 budget. I think I can get a mover and a seconder on this one. It's pretty straightforward. Can I have a mover, please? I have Paul Heffer moving. Seconder, please. Kevin Faulkner seconds. Let's have a conversation. Anything anybody would like to discuss about this one? Oh, Carson, did you want to speak to it first?
I can just high level, your worship. So you hit the nail on the head there. It's pretty straightforward. So there was $22,800 allocated out of the unconditional March of 2019 modernization funds, specifically for the laserfish licenses as it relates to records management. We've moved to a municipal site license, which was a new product developed by Think Docs and Laserfish, which has rendered the need for these licenses not necessary, which is a benefit to the township as we require funds in another area of records management in order to take advantage of the grant funding we receive from the province. And I guess for the benefit of the public, the province has approved our digital modernization records management project for up to 75% of the costs. So that's $108,750. And then so the municipality contributes 25% of that. In order to fulfill the township's full 25% contribution, to maximize use of the funds and to bring in the IT equipment necessary for these individuals to do their jobs, I've recommended in the staff report that $22,800 of grant funding be allocated to another area of records management, so that we are successfully able to onboard these individuals and hopefully move to a fully electronic records management and retention system.
Thank you very much. Would anybody have any questions on that? I am not seeing any, so Carson, I'm going to hand it right back to you for roll call.
Thank you, Your Worship. So, Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve-Sipe?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very kindly. 7.2, we have nothing. 7.3, we have nothing. 7.4, Public Works and Facilities. I'm actually going to have Jamie speak to this one because we do need direction. It's not on the recommendation yet. So let's have Jamie speak to it. We'll have a conversation and we'll go from there. Jamie, you're up.
Thank you, Reeve Bailey. So I have a report outlining the need to look into a permanent council chambers location. At this time, the former council chambers has been converted into office space and the workstations of the Human Resources Coordinator and the Records Management Assistant. As council is aware, from Carson just mentioned in his report, is that we were successful in obtaining further funding for 4 more records management individuals that will also need to be working out of the former council chambers. And now that the provincial government has stated that stage 3 of the roadmap to reopening will be occurring, it's already occurred. Indoor and outdoor event venues, including concert venues, will be able to operate with a capacity restriction of 50% indoors, which I don't know yet what the Town Hall Theatre has planned for the remainder of the 2021 season or 2022. But looking optimistically and seeing if they do proceed with having events, then there is a little bit of movement. I don't know how often, from removing everything from it being a council chambers or a committee meeting or a board meeting into the theater and then putting it all back up when it's required. So staff is seeking council direction on the preferred option for further investigation for a permanent council chamber location. So I researched previous reports and I provided 4 options to council. Option 1 would be that it kind of piggybacks on the previous report of the Wingham Armory's demolition. And there is area in the back to expand the council town hall and build something in behind the existing town hall. Another option would be to renovate or expand the hot stove lounge or the museum across the street from the town hall. Looking at both locations, the more affordable option would be to renovate the hot stove lounge over by the community complex center, as there's already accessible washrooms, electrical, a more updated electrical at the complex. There's lots of parking available, and it would be easily accessible to get to without having to do major renovations to the building. Unlike the museum, where we would have to make sure that we had things in place in order to make it accessible by at least 2025. Option 3 would be to rent or lease council chamber space on an as-needed basis. There is possibility that an appropriate location could be found that satisfies the requirement for council and committee meetings. Staff would need to research all of the possible locations and then come back to council come back to council for direction to show the compiled appropriate locations and investigate a draft agreement for council's consideration. The fourth option that staff have come up with is purchasing a fully accessible building to accommodate a permanent council chamber space and staff offices. This would be similar to option 3. Staff can investigate any area of the township for a building that meets all the requirements for the location of a permanent council chambers. With this option, staff would need direction on an overall cost allotment. As part of the investigation, staff will determine if existing space can be renovated to assist in broadening the search of possible buildings. If a suitable building was found, staff would need authorization to negotiate a purchase and sale agreement. And if services of a real estate agent are utilized, it is expected there will be a commission fee. So out of those 4 options, staff was hoping to get a clearer direction as to what council would like to see and what type of role you'd like to see staff take on to come to a solution for kind of the restraints that are currently occurring in the town hall. That's all. And if anybody has questions.
Thank you very much, Jamie. So again, we're going to open this up for conversation and see if we can come up with a motion amongst ourselves. I think we're all aware of the cost of doing business in COVID-19. Things are changing. Things have changed. Anybody that's been in the town hall pretty well understands what Jamie just said. And we can't guarantee whether this is going to go on forever or a little while. We all know how crowded the council chambers are to begin with. I'm going to let it go at that. I want to open it up to council for a discussion. So who'd like to start? Don't all jump at once. Anita, you're first.
Thank you, Bernie. I have a question. It's more related to the usage of the theater. The council chambers right now are used for the green room for the theater. Is it still for shows happening again when all those workstations are there? Can it still be used, or is that is the possibility of the usage of the theater still very limited now?
Through Reed Bailey to Councillor Van Heersum, I believe that they would still be able to use the council chambers as a dressing room or green room. It's very open concept right now, and there's no, the desks, I'm not too sure how they would be placed, but if needed, there are fairly large tables in the room where you all sat. So those could be shuffled around to accommodate people needing to do whatever they need to do if needed.
Thank you, Jamie. Okay, who's next? Trevor, did you have your hand up? I thought I seen your, oh, Chris has his hand up. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I'll be number 2, I guess. Thank you, Reeve. I guess it's to everybody and to Jamie. Jamie, you came up with some ideas, that's for sure. But it's really hard for me anyways, to choose one of them because there's just not enough information. I need costs. You just can't guess. Like for us to pick a particular option, and then you work diligently to figure out the costs of it, but we may have missed an opportunity in one of the other options just because we don't know. And so it's just, it hasn't gone far enough for me. and I'm just dreadfully aware that we can't afford, we just can't afford big ticket items, that's for sure. And I'm still bothered that we as council, you're not going to like me saying this, but been kicked to the curb. I don't like that. I know you didn't mean it in those terms. I know that. But I feel that those are our council chambers, period. And yes, they're a little large under normal circumstances, and I have no trouble with some cubicles being set up down one side or whatever, down the west side. Yeah, there's no staff there when we come to meet, so it's not an issue. I'll share my council chamber with staff, no problem. So I feel that there should be an option 5, you know, status quo, and working with having some staff work in our chambers. That would be the cheapest route. And some of those staff of the 4, like that's temporary, and maybe there's other temporary, we're not sure. And then there's room down in Blythe at the works department, fire department. There's rooms. Maybe a future CBO can go down there. We have to think outside the box for staff, I think. Just so we don't spend that extra money that we do not have. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. So I believe I just heard Chris put on the table, let's stay the way we are now. Okay, so anybody else? Go ahead, Jamie.
Through Reeve Bailey to Councillor Palmer. The status quo wasn't looked into, as with the COVID restrictions that are in place, and if appropriate distancing is still required, having staff cubicles or desks will make it quite, it'll eat up space along the perimeter or along the side of the council chambers, and we won't be able to meet those distancing requirements. As even when we had that short stint where we were able to meet in person between, now it's all blurring together, I can't remember when we were able to meet together, staff had to take turns to being allowed in and out of the building or out of the room, so that we didn't hit too many, because we weren't able to meet that 6-foot distancing requirement in the current council chambers. So the status quo isn't possible at this time. That's one of the main reasons why I did not put it in here as an option, but it is an option to try to move staff out of town hall if that's something you want to look at. The renovations or building of or constructing of buildings is going to be expensive, whether it's the hot stove lounge or at the rear of the town hall. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even $1 million. I'm not too sure. But that's where I would need authorization from council to say, really figure out these numbers and let me know what it is that, what criteria you don't want to make, or possibly even if there are options in here that are firmly a no thank you, we could at least take those off of the plate, and then I can focus on the other options instead.
Thank you, Jamie.
So,
Paul, I believe you had your hand up.
Bailey, if I could just clarify a couple things as well, because not to leave Jamie hanging here, but Sean and myself did a lot of the initial investigations, so it might help fill in the gaps to where Jamie's report is now. It's not just a pre-COVID environment. We had a space problem prior to COVID-19. So as part of the budget deliberations, which was pre-COVID-19, council set aside some modernization funds for office space investigations for town hall. So I just want to clarify that this problem predates COVID-19 and the need for social distancing. And then the other piece I want to clarify too, in regard to Councillor Palmer's question in regard to sharing the space. So the way it's set up now, and certainly the equipment that these records management scanners would need, you're talking about significant equipment that cannot just easily be moved around or shuffled to the side by any means. Like these are hefty scanners. And quite frankly, because we have such a space concern, I'm not entirely sure where you would even move that stuff to, because of the space limitations at Town Hall. So it's not just the records management contracts, but in a pre-COVID environment. So for example, we lacked the space. Normally the planner would meet with North Huron residents 1 day a week, so they didn't have to drive to Goderich. We lacked that space for an individual to meet out of Town Hall, and we obviously at some point want to get back to that arrangement, but that person was always located in different areas based on who was in the building and what kind of meeting space was available, and a lot of the time there frankly just wasn't any space available for them, unfortunately. The other considerations, so we had a chief building official working out of the chambers two half days a week. So depending on where council goes with that, you would certainly need to find them appropriate space as from a customer service perspective. We want to have someone in the building capable of answering building questions when people come to Town Hall to pick up their applications from the front desk. And then the final piece with the records, just for some context as well, with the records management assistants, you can't really move them around either because the records they are working with are located at Town Hall, and you get into a whole bunch of other concerns as soon as you're taking those permanent records that are supposed to be making their way into the system out of the facility. So to provide some context, those are some things I would mention. I guess in regard to the green room comment as well, there is potential that we might need to look into something along the lines with that because of how permanent these office spaces are. Like the workstations are, they're not certainly easily movable like we had it before, where you could just slide the desks out of the way. And also from a security perspective, right? You're going to have a ton of IT infrastructure and all that sitting in that same area. So that is something we might need to look into as well. But I guess to paint a picture, that's kind of what we're dealing with. And I just really want to reiterate that it is a pre-COVID-19 concern as well. And even if physical distancing is not a thing anymore, the problem is still going to be there, and it was there before.
Vicky, just before I go to you, I had Paul Haffer had his hand up, then I'm going to go to you, Vicky. Or would you rather speak something you want to say before he speaks? You know what, Paul, we're going to let her go first in case she's got, okay, thank you. Go ahead, Vicky.
All right, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to add into that too, with the clerk and the director of public works. Just on the green room, and I just did a little bit of figuring here and things, you know, basically, as Carson indicated, you know, the CBO's currently 2 half days, and we've got an HR coordinator that's 4 days, and then 4 records management people. You know, space-wise, that does start to add up. And as Carson indicated, you do have a lot of equipment that's there. I would have concerns with rental groups coming in and having use of the green room when you have equipment like that sitting around, computer equipment, as well as scanners and specialized equipment for that as well. Not to mention the records that would be on hand. You know, we have the funding to get these positions in place and things. They have to have a work area, and the work that they're doing is pretty well tied to the town hall itself. I'm not sure how else, you know, they would be able to do their work. It wouldn't be very efficient if they had to, you know, be located somewhere else and travel back and forth. And then there's the whole security thing of taking records off site. So.
Thank you, Vicky. Go ahead, Paul. You're muted, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you, Reeve. Yeah, I think somebody said no thank you, and I'll say that to the museum. And I'll say that for any of the places that we want to rent or go and buy. we've got to use our own buildings. This is money we're talking here. And I didn't take in all the COVID. I'm hoping the COVID's going to disappear, because I was for keeping things as usual, because I appreciate the things there, but I see what is going on. I was hoping that out of this we could have some short-term solutions here. Like my thing I had in cubicles, and I had public works down in Blythe, where I quite often go past there. I don't see a truck even in the front parking lot. Maybe they're in the back, but I thought there was some office space there when we're looking through it. I thought it's that for our CBO. I just thought if we could come up with a short-term solution until we can have a discussion around our budget deliberations. This is money that's outside of we don't have anything in budget now that we can go and do right now. So I feel that I wish there's a price on making the place in the arena soundproof. I'm hoping that's not going to cost thousands and thousands of dollars like somebody alluded to. I hope that is wrong, but definitely we got to use our own building, and I'm sure when we come to budget time that we might be happy that we do have a budget there, with what things are going to cost. And sorry, I had one more thing, Reeves. Just give me a sec here. Again, I'm trusting this COVID is going to be going away so we can get back to normalcy. Oh yes. Also, there's a thing coming up down the road. We've talked about it at the last couple meetings. There could be another building, the town, the museum, the train station. Whether it'll go or not, I don't know, but I know there's offices there. So I just feel there's lots of options here that if we can fill the short term in and then try and make something go from that. But I'd really like to see a cost and not waterproofing, voice proofing the hot stove lounge. Thank you.
So, and maybe Reeve Bailey, if I could just clarify one more thing. So your short-term solution is still the town hall theater, right? So if council wants to resume meetings, you can you can locate in that town hall theater, and quite frankly, it's the township owns the facility. Council can locate it as long as in that facility as long as they see fit. So I just want to clarify, there is no concern short-term if council wants to go back to in-person meetings as soon as you want to. For some additional context, when Sean and I did our original investigations, I believe Jamie attached that report to the agenda, but the parameters we looked at was basically we included social distancing in there, as well as township's IT capabilities, the ability to live stream, etc. But those are not to broaden the scope on council, but if council doesn't want to live stream, and if it's not a COVID-19 environment, that might broaden your options with our existing space. So for example, the Knights of Columbus meeting room at the complex, we might be able to use a shared arrangement for use of that space. It's certainly already well equipped with the furniture there. If that's, but I guess at this point, the director of public works is not saying make a decision by any means, because there's, as Councillor Heffer alluded to, there's certainly not a budget in place for it. But we as staff require direction on which options do you want us to investigate further at this time, so that we're not doing anything and everything for options, because this is, like, quite frankly, it would be very, very time consuming to investigate certain options that if council is not wanting to entertain those at all, I would suggest that we take those off the table. But very high level at this point, and we as staff just need some direction on what you want staff to do to investigate this further, kind of in the longer term, with the short term being that the town hall theater is certainly available.
So I'm gonna jump in there, but you want to go first, Kev? Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Reeve. I think for a ground level analysis, we would have to know what square footage we would need, and I think it would be safe to calculate under the current situations that we have, because there could be another situation where another shutdown or another portion of pandemic comes through. So if these are a possibility of having to revisit these, that's going to take us a larger footprint. I don't think that under the COVID conditions that unless you expanded the hot stove lounge, I don't think there's any more room there than there would at the current or the past council chambers. It's not that much square footage, and I think even the Knights of Columbus meeting room there it would still be quite tight. I think it would be, you need a much larger portion than that, and I think that the seat of government should be in one building. I think that a permanent council chambers needs to be arranged just for the sanctity of it all. So whether that's adding on to the back of the town hall now on property that we already own, or finding one. But I just think some of these options that we're looking for here don't give us the added safety of maybe having to revisit what the conditions that we're in now, or were in last week.
Thank you. I just want to put my thoughts in here. I'm dead set against adding on to the town hall. I think we just tore a building down, number one, and number two, if everything goes according to plan, the county is actually going to put in 3 electric chargers there, fast chargers. This hasn't come before. I think we talked about this a year ago, but we have passed. We have 3 coming, I believe, and I think behind the town hall, and therefore the people are on the main street to visit our main street. And I believe we might be putting one over in Blythe. But anyway, long story short, that's parking. And anybody that knows anything about owning a business on the main street of any town knows parking is a big problem, because 75% of the people will go to the mall because of parking. And it's still, when you go to a mall, it's still 10 little stores. It's just inside. So I think parking is a big thing, whether it's Blythe. We've had that discussion about Blythe, and we'll continue to try to take care of that. But again, the same thing in Wingham. I am for the what we call the old post office, the one with the clock in it across the street from the town hall. When I was on council last time, we spent a gazillion, and don't quote me, everybody, I'd have to look up, and 8 years ago, give me a break. But I do know that we put new furnaces in there, all new piping in there, all new heating in there. So that's all taken care of. The downstairs, the basement where all that is cleaned up. I'm not suggesting fixing the whole building up, but I am suggesting that if memory serves me right from 50 years ago, that was pretty well one big room down there. There were, I believe, a couple of posts. So I would think on the interior, it would not be too hard to turn that into one big room that would suit everybody and everything we want to do, and have our council chambers there. I do know that there's going to be money spent on putting in accessibility. But unless we're going to get rid of that building, we're going to have to spend that money sooner or later anyway, and that's in 2025, as we've done with the town hall. So my thought is, you've got your staff on one side and you've got your council chamber on the other side. It's all up close. If we're having meetings during the day and need anything, the staff is nice as handy. The lounge, the hot stove lounge, I don't think it's big enough. As Kevin said, the other one down there isn't big enough. I don't think we've only been in the fire department over in Blythe once. I think it's not big enough, and we don't have a building in Belgrade. So I would like, personally, I would like staff to look into the cost, because this is what they're asking us for, guys. They want direction. I would like to see them looking into the cost of what would it cost, and if possible, to use that grand old building that's been there forever and always will be. Thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm throwing that out. So we've got, we don't want to rent, we don't want to use this and this and this. We are going to use the theater as much as we can, knowing that they did volunteers did put that all together, so they're not going to want us taking it over on them, period. So I just want to throw that out there that I do know we spent a lot of money on it when I was in council. I know Connie Goodall was our worked for us, and she had an office in there all the time. So it has been used in recent times. And I see Vicky wanted to put her hand up and say something. Go ahead, Vic.
Through your worship, I just wanted to add a little bit to the comment or the suggestion of the hot stove lounge. I've heard a few comments here made about it not being large enough space and things. We're no longer in the concession business at the facility. So there is additional space beyond that room. There's the kitchenette area, then there's a big storage room, then there's also the actual concession booth itself, not to mention the seating area out front. So there's more space there than what you may think. But just wanted to clarify that for council so that they understood why that was brought forward.
Appreciate that. I would add to that three of us sat in there trying to do negotiations with Morris Turnberry. We couldn't hear ourselves think, so you might have to have a pretty thick wall there when somebody scores at this end of the arena. Jamie, I'm going to hand it back to you first. And Trevor, did you have your hand in? Okay, you're next. Go ahead.
Thank you, Reef Bailey. So my putting in the hot stove lounge was not to keep it as is. It would need to be expanded. When I volunteered for the vaccine clinics, that's where volunteers were placed, and it is far too small for it to be a council chambers. My intention in my report was that we would renovate and expand that area into the parking lot. So that's where I said that it would be like a few $100,000 because it is too small the way it currently exists. One of the perks of it, though, is that we wouldn't have to worry about washrooms or, wide enough hallways or entryways to get into the building that are accessible, where that is a concern at the museum. So just as long as you are all aware, the museum not only does not have accessible washrooms, it has a lot of stairs in it, and in order for it to be upgraded to the proper criteria, that will be costly. There have been assessments completed on the museum building, and again, once you start renovating, you need to start renovating it to the current building codes, and that does impact when it's a historical building. So as long as we're all aware of what you want staff to research, I'm more than willing to move forward in any direction. But I will need to be directed to use hopefully costs through the in 2022, or if we can find money in the reserves to move forward and start working on some engineering and architectural work.
I think we all understand we're going to be going to the theater for quite some time. This is not an overnight. This will not go through in our council time. This is one that will linger into the next council, I would presume. So right now we've got sitting looking at the hot stove lounge and the museum. Trevor, you were going to speak. Sorry.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. I just wanted to make mention a couple of things, that I've been wrapping around in my head over the past 2 or 3 days, just thinking about this. Council sits as council twice a month for 4 hours a day, 4 hours of time. Let's just say 4 hours at the max. That's 6 till 10, 2 times a month. Arguably, we need to understand that, yes, the sanctity of council is the sanctity of council. I completely understand where Councillor Faulkner's talking, and Councillor Palmer's mentioned that a couple of times as well. But we sit 8 hours a month. So we need to understand and I mean, I am quite happy with Town Hall Theater, to be quite honest with you. We own the building. you know, that could be the permanent solution in my mind. But I mean, I'm okay with looking at other alternatives. I think ultimately from the argument is Councillor Palmer and there is more information that needs to be given. Square footage. What are the needs of the municipality? Not necessarily only on a council chamber discussion, but something else. Is it a multi-use room? Is it just a council chambers? Whatever the case may be, I think staff needs to provide us that need in a scope of where we've given them. I'm more than happy to provide to use the option to renovate the hot stove lounge into looking at what that space looks like. I mean, nothing is in concrete. I mean, nothing is. All it is a report that comes back that says, here's what the value of this stuff is. I think that I understand where the REIT is coming from the museum perspective, but I also think it's a heritage building. It's a big space that you open some walls and you possibly could be running into some bigger cost. We don't know that. We're not operational, so I don't know whether that's the right answer or the wrong answer. But I think at this point we need to provide the staff with the direction. So, but I want council to understand and just clarify that we are sitting 2 times a month for 4 hours a time. The place where we are in currently is much more utilized for staff complement and operations of the municipality than us having a sitting council chamber. I think that has to be solid and clear right now. COVID or no COVID, that is in my mind more important than our council chambers in the sense of where we sit and where we do our business. So I'm completely in favor of option 2. I will say that I am not in favor, after thinking about it, I am not in favor of option 3 or 4 unless option 4 is an absolute steal. I'm not willing to accept buying another building when we can possibly think about the buildings that we have currently. So, I mean, I am more than happy with option 2 to do that suggestion for staff and let them come back with us with a suggestion or a thought process on that.
So I wonder if we could just look at it this way, because we want more information. Could we say, could staff go out and look at the hot stove lounge and the museum and the town hall theater, what it would take to put the town hall theater together so that it works properly for us instead of the blinding light that I see when I'm in there? That would be the 3 options. I'm going to go to Chris first. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. I just want everyone to be aware, the theater, I hate it there. I find the stairs going up to the top where the theater part is, where we sit, dangerous for me. And unless you put a Johnny on the spot somewhere close by, the bathroom's too far for me. You know, don't laugh, but it's an issue for me. And I'm ready to go right now. So as soon as we're dealing with this, I'm off. And but anyways, the stairs are dangerous. I feel like I'm taking my life into my hands just going down them.
So we'll take that into consideration too, the staff will. So I'm hearing that the hot stove lounge, the museum, or the town hall theater, can we see if these 3 items would work for all of us, as Chris said, to make sure it's proper for accessibility? Are we good with that, council, that they can come back with some information on those, and we'll go ahead, Deputy Reeve first, then Mr. Heffer.
So I'm going with the assumption that if that is what your conversation is, it's option 2. That's the discussion. It's option 2. All you're doing is adding the hot stove lounge in there, or sorry, the town hall theater as a potential permanent establishment for council chambers. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yep. So those 3 things. Yeah, because I didn't think the one was in option. Paul, go ahead. Oh, you're muted, Paul.
You, Reeve. I just want to have, I'm not sure I've heard enough about the hot stove lounge there now. I'm getting, is there not a big enough building? I heard from, I think it was Vicky, or no, from Jamie, and Vicky said it was like, is that a big undertaking? Am I seeing a big undertaking there, Jamie?
Just so we all understand, yeah, it does sound that way, but I think in all fairness to staff that they need to go and they need to come back with the reports on those. This is just a report on those, right, girls? Jamie shaking her head. Okay, Vicky, you're okay. Vicky, did you want to speak? Right.
Once you're finished with Councillor Hepper, yes, I'd like to make a comment.
Paul, we good on that?
Yeah, no, that's good for me. Thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead, Vicky.
Through your worship, I actually thought Councillor Heffer might bring this to light, but the Director of Public Works is correct. If council was to agree to renovate the museum building, even that just the lower level, it doesn't, once you do any kind of renovations, the entire building has to be brought up to the current building code. You cannot isolate just one area of it. It's the entire building, okay? So just so no, that's true. I wish Kirk was on the line. He could attest to that. But just to comment on that is that the building was closed because of the condition of the building and it not being accessible, etc. So if council was to choose to go with the museum building for council chambers and the renovations were to occur, then do we leave the museum at that building?
Oh, Vicky just brought into something that we'll talk about another day.
Hey, yes. So
and,
food for thought.
Yes, dear. I clearly hear where you're going with that. Go ahead, Mr. Hepper.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Reeve. Yes, Trevor brought that point up about the museum across the way there, and he mentioned about one thing leads to another. Well, you're talking about $3 to $4 million, and so I think I mentioned earlier I'd take that they asked, none that we don't want to do anything with. That's too scary for me.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it's going to go that way, but we've talked about the three options, and if we, as everybody said, they want more information, and that's fair. Trev, did you have something?
I was just going to put this. I was just actually going to put a motion on the floor, Reeve. I was actually going to say, I would the option. So my suggestion is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the Director of Public Works and Facilities dated July 19th regarding council chamber investigations, and further that council directs staff to proceed with investigating option 2, excluding the main floor of the former municipal museum building, and as the preferred option for location of the permanent council chambers. That is the option, or that is the motion that I would like to put on the floor.
So you're taking the museum out of it?
Based on the conversation, what I'm hearing, that's what the motion I would like to put on the floor is, yes, just look at the hot stove lounge as the option at this point.
Funny, I thought I heard a few minutes ago we wanted more information on everything. So go ahead. Paul, you're seconding that? Okay.
So I can read back the motion if you want, your worship.
Yep.
So the motion on the floor would be that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the Director of Public Works and Facilities dated July 19th, 2021 regarding council chambers investigations, and further that council directs staff to proceed with investigating option number 2, the hot stove lounge, as the preferred option for the location of a permanent council chambers.
Go ahead, Anita.
Are we talking, did somebody want to add the theater as well or not? Did we talk about that or not?
We talked about
and the
three,
theater?
I thought we talked about 3 options, but we have a motion on the floor.
Yeah, so you have a motion on the floor. So your mover and the seconder would need to be in favor of that addition as well. And if not, then that would be your motion that you want to put to a vote, or you can add to it.
Go ahead, Trevor.
I want to make it clear here. This is so that the staff can come back. We already know what the town hall does for us, the town hall theater. We use it today. The hot stove lounge is going to give us another option so that we compare the two options and what we want to use potentially as a permanent establishment. We could use the town hall theater tomorrow. We could say that's our permanent home tomorrow. I've got Councillor Palmer saying he doesn't like that option. So at least I'm hearing, by us making this motion today, what I'm saying is this is going to get a report to council, and we can look at what we are in currently today if we were to go back to in-person meetings versus comparing to something that would happen in 5 years. I'm just saying that this is a way for us to compare.
Anita, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I'm just mentioning the theater because of the problems with possible problems with the green room. If we need to investigate anything anymore, if there's an opportunity somewhere for a green room instead of the council chambers there. Is that fair to add that or not?
Up to the mover and seconder.
Reeve, what I'm hearing from staff is operationally, this green room discussion is going to have to be talked about to the town hall theater without any of this discussion anyways. Like that green room is an operational discussion that's going to have to happen because of that space, the way it is currently configured. So, I mean, I don't know why we would have that in this motion. I mean, that's going to be a discussion permanently. The town hall theater needs to understand that option, but we need to that's an operational perspective between the town hall theater committee and recreation and Vicky's department, in my opinion.
So just to give clear understanding to everyone, we've somehow chosen one option, the hot stove lounge. If that's not satisfactory, then you just simply vote no. If that's satisfactory, you vote yes, and it'll be the one option, okay? So there is a motion on the floor, and I'm going to hand it over to Carson now to do roll call.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just one more time here, the motion on the floor is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report of the Director of Public Works and Facilities dated July 19th, 2021 regarding council chambers investigations. And further, that council directs staff to proceed with investigating option number 2, the hot stove lounge, as the preferred option for the location of a permanent council chambers. So I'll call that vote now. So Deputy Reeve Sight.
Yes.
Councillor Falconer.
Yes.
Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
No.
So that motion carries 6-1 with the no being Reeve Bailey.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Moving on, Fire Department, 7.5.1, the draft open air burning bylaw. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the Fire Prevention Officer dated July 19, 2021 regarding a new open air burning bylaw for information, and further that the council directs the clerk to prepare for bylaw for the August 9, 2021 regular meeting to adopt the new open air bylaw, burning bylaw. Do I have a mover? I have Paul moving. I have Anita seconding. Marty, did you want to speak to this?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Reeve.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. So what we're doing is we're just updating the current bylaw to clearly define the rules and regulations regarding the open air burning. And this update includes the necessary short form wording, is what they call it, to enable us to, or all enforcement officers, the ability to issue provincial offenses tickets for offenders. So that's the main reasons for the update. The old bylaw wasn't bad in the way it was drafted, but we're just mainly fine tuning it and then adding the short form wording in. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Not seeing, go ahead, Trevor.
Yes, thank you, thank you, Reeve. Marty, I actually had a couple of questions. I mean, I know in the report it indicated that based on lots of discussion, we needed to be more clear as to what you could open air burn. Is it a problem the fact that they're just not reading the actual bylaw, or is it the actual they just don't understand what they can burn and what they can't burn? Because I hear that all the time. Well, I didn't know. Well, did you ask the question before you just went and decided to burn something? I mean, is it always a conversation of I'll ask for forgiveness before I ask for permission? I mean, arguably, I'm just wondering on the comment side as to making it more clear and updated. Is that the concern? Is that people are just not knowing where to get the information, or they truly just don't understand what they can burn and what they can't burn?
Through you, Reeve, I think that the people that break the bylaw are probably the people that aren't going to read the bylaw, in my opinion. So what we find is it's mainly the urban areas of the township, and we find it being renters, not property owners. And to be quite honest with you, sometimes the renters really don't care, so they do it anyways. This update will allow us to actually, for those that keep disobeying the bylaw, the ability to issue a ticket directly to them instead of to the property owner.
Any other questions for Marty? Go ahead, Trevor, and then Paul.
The other question that I have is, that is a great, in my opinion, that is a great change in the sense that you're not going to find the building owner, but you're going to find the actual person that does it. My concern would be is in a lot of these fines are obviously they're $400, and then the one is during a fire ban, you bumped it to $500. My question is, have these fines are these comparable to other municipalities who have these certain fines? Or is there something that needs to be a deterrent here where, is $400 enough, or is $500 enough? I don't know. I mean, if I had to have a choice between burning something and having to pay a $500 fine, I'm definitely going to ask the question. But I'll definitely ask the question if I get a $1,000 fine or something like that. I'm just wondering, are these fines a deterrent enough in the sense that, and how are these comparable to other municipalities that have set these things in?
Yeah, through you, your worship. It's hard to say until you start enforcing them. They are comparable to the ones that I've been involved with. There are some municipalities that set them a little higher. But what we find is if we set them too high, they're not going to get paid. And, you can send all that stuff to the creditors and do all that. You're not going to get paid that. I think just the fact that somebody's getting issued a ticket, I think that they're going to think twice the next time. Fines being aside, I think the point of receiving a provincial offenses ticket might deter them. So the only way to find out is to put it into effect.
Thank you, Marty. I think Paul had his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Reeve. Yeah, for you, Marty, living in town here, I'm just wondering, for the people in East Wanash in the rural area, they can phone a number and if they want to have a controlled burn, right?
Yes. So we've got a couple things in place. We have a phone number where they leave a message.
It's got all the detailed information in the message. They listen to all the regulations. They leave their name, phone number, what they're burning, all that kind of stuff. We also have on the new website, we have an online submission form. They fill it out. It gets sent to all the officers in the fire department, and then we're all aware of what's happening. So if we do receive complaints, then we follow up with it and deal with it at that time. But yes, the people in the rural areas, they still can burn like they normally have been, like the brush piles and things like that. And as long as they go through the proper procedures. So I think that'll work out.
Thanks for the clarification. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions for Marty? Go ahead, Trevor.
First question I had, Marty, is that, and I'm just only for my purposes, is that I completely agree, or I thank you for your answers to the two previous questions that I had. I'm wondering if once this bylaw is in place and those enforcement tactics are being met, if that could be part of the statistics that we get as it relates to fire prevention officer and fire stuff, just so that we can keep an eye, or at least an understanding of either one, how many fines are being issued, what warnings are being issued, if there's warnings being issued, those types of things, so that we can make sure that we, as it relates to this policy, that we can at least understand how our policy is impacting the respect in the municipality.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Not seeing any more. I believe I have movers, so I'm going to hand it over to Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. 7.6, Building Department, we have no reports. 7.7, we have no reports. 7.8, 7.8.1, CAO-2021-12, IT Service Delivery Review Modernization Program. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the CAO dated July 19th, 2021 regarding the request for proposal, RFP results for the IT Service Delivery Review in the amount of $26,550 plus applicable taxes to A&A Ward Consulting and Associates, and further that the council authorizes staff to sign an agreement with A&A Ward Consulting and Associates for the IT Service Delivery Review, and further that the council authorizes the Director of Finance to make necessary adjustments to the approval of the 2021 budget. And I'll get a mover and seconder. We'll have Dwayne speak to this. I have Kevin moving it. Seconder, please. I have Christopher seconding it. Thank you. Dwayne, do you just want to touch on this one?
Thanks, Reeve Bailey. So back in 2019, the province announced a modernization program, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 program. And as council is aware, we applied and were successful in receiving funding to do a service delivery review for our phase 1. And at the March 1st, 2021 meeting, council authorized staff to proceed to submit 2 funding applications to intake 2 of the program. The one application, as was discussed previously, was to hire temporary records management assistants, and the second was an application for an information technology third-party review. As council is aware, we were successful with our funding applications, and subsequently this report seeking council's authorization to award that contract for the IT Service Delivery Review, as the Reeve has indicated, in the amount of $26,550 to A&A Ward Consulting and Associates. In terms of the amount of funding we received, we did receive funding up to 100% to a maximum of $30,000, so certainly not anticipating any impact on taxation. In terms of A&A Ward Consulting and Associates, the submission that they submitted is very detailed and well presented. They are based in Windsor, Ontario, so relatively local. In terms of the project team, One certainly has a lot of background and experience working with municipalities, having spent 25 years working for the City of Windsor. The other individual is coming to us with a lot of technical expertise, so a good complement in that regard. So unless there's any questions from council, again, the recommendation is to award the contract to A&A Ward Consulting.
Mr. Faulkner?
Yes, thank you, through you, Reeve. Just curious, the contract, does it line up with our budgeting timeframe so that it comes due after our budget's clear? Like, is this just for the remainder of the year, this contract, or is that a year contract?
For your worship, in terms of the Intake 2 funding was announced in the end of June, and the project has to be completed by the end of November. So in terms of the announcement of the program we didn't know when the program was going to be announced for this. And we have to have the project wrapped up by the end of November, if I'm understanding the question correctly.
Oh, so this is just a one-time project, is it? It's not like a year service kind of contract.
No, it's a IT third-party review. Yeah,
okay,
sorry.
Thank you. Thank you.
To recite?
I just want to clarify Councillor Falker's question. We currently have Continuit doing our IT. They're an external provider, and this company is to evaluate whether we continue to have a company like Continuit or rehire internal IT services inside the municipality. That's their intent of what this request is. We're not moving them to A&A Ward. They're reviewing the discussions about whether we continually have a third party like Continuit do our IT or bring it back in house.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. That makes it more clear for me.
Thank you. Go ahead, Paul. You're muted. Good.
Yes, through you, Reeve. Thank you. There shouldn't be any unexpected costs. I noticed you put that in your report there, right, Dwayne? Like, it won't get up over the 30,000, right?
Through you, your worship, we're certainly not anticipating that it will be. When you get into these types of projects, though, there will be instances where, when we're doing this, would you like us to also do this, in terms of, I'll call them add-ons. And certainly, given the fact that it's 30,000 and this is coming in at the 26,550, we're certainly close. So as we move forward with this project, we'll have to be very mindful that we don't exceed that $30,000 budget.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, Trevor.
The one question that I did have, Reeve, is it says one of the objective is to determine if the existing third-party IT partnership is suitable. I guess my question is this group somehow going to evaluate what Continuit provides us or doesn't provide us, or is this somehow an evaluation of their service as well, or are they aware of this? Or, I mean, I'm just wondering what context Continuit knows about this project or anything like that. Just from a relationship perspective, I'm wondering. I just want to make sure that we're not ruffling a feather that we don't really need to ruffle.
To your worship, I've had a conversation with Continuit about it. They're fully aware of this initiative and this project. To some extent, they welcome it in terms of they would like to also hear some comments and some recommendations. They recognize that there's been some struggles regarding IT, and if somebody from the outside can come in and identify a particular issue or problem, they're certainly open to that conversation. So yeah.
Great, thank you very much.
Good question.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing any. Carson, I believe I have movers. Do you want to do the roll call?
Yes, thank you, your worship. So Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sipe?
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very much. Next is 7.8.2, which is the CAO 2021-13 North Huron Roadmap to Reopening. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives the report from the CAO dated July 19th, 2021 regarding a roadmap to reopening plan for North Huron. And further, that the council approves the roadmap to reopening plan for North Huron as outlined in staff report CAO-2021-13. And further, that the council directs all staff Township of North Huron Council Committee and Board meetings to return to in-person meetings as of August 3rd, 2021. Whew, do I have a mover? I have Anita moving, Paul seconding. Dwayne, do you want to speak to this?
Sure, thanks, Your Worship. So as council's aware, on July 16th, last Friday, we entered stage 3 of the province's roadmap to reopening plan. And over the past couple of weeks, from a staff's perspective, we've certainly been having conversations and discussions in terms of resuming municipal operations. Stage 1 and 2 had little to no impact on our operations, but certainly stage 3 does. Again, for the last couple of weeks, just pooling our thoughts, and this is the plan that we have come up with. So in terms of our town hall, as the Reeve has indicated, we currently do have a vacancy in our administration department, which we're actually in the process of filling very, very shortly. So the recommendation here is that we open up town hall on August the 3rd with all public health safety measures in place for both staff and for council. And it's also noted in there in terms of with respect to in-person council meetings, again, it's recommended that those resume in person on August the 3rd. And further to that, we have made arrangements for meeting locations for the Wingham BA Board and the Blythe BA Board. So those two organizations will be allowed to meet in person as well. No impact on our finance, fire department, or public works and facility department, or perhaps no, it's some impact, but very, very minimal impact. But certainly from a recreation community services perspective, the step 3 does allow for the opening of our recreational facilities. And it's proposed that we open the West Cass Community Complex and the Blythe District Community Center as early as July 21st, which is this Wednesday. And that the hours of operation are based on the staffing level available for modified and phased in programming. So we do have to phase in the programming as our staffing situation allows. And it's also noted in there in terms of we do have a bit of a shortage of our part-time staff, hence the phased in programming approach. With respect to daycare services, the main daycare center has remained operational during the closure. Adjustments to the service have occurred, resulting in increasing number of children at the daycare center. So that will continue in terms of the before and after school program on the basis that schools resume in person in September. We will resume the before and after school program. So if council's in agreement with that, that is the plan that we will move forward with.
Thank you very much, Dwayne. Any questions for Dwayne? Not seeing any. I'm going to hand it over to Carson again.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight?
Yes, sir.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you very kindly. We're going to move down to 7.8.3 CEO 2021-14 Director of Financial Recruitment. I'm not going to ask for a mover here because what we're doing is we've traditionally had the Trevor, myself, and the CAO do the recruiting, but we want to make sure that all council is still okay with that, or if you want to make a change. So I'm going to open it up to questions and comments first. before we move forward? Not seeing any. Okay. That the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report from the CAO dated July 19, 2021 regarding the recruitment of the Director of Finances, and further that the council authorizes staff to commence with municipally led hiring process to recruit a permanent full-time Director of Finances, and approves the hiring process contained in this report, CAO-2021-14. And further that the council approves the attached Director of Finance job description dated July 2021. And further that council agrees to interview panel for the Director of Finance position will consist of the CEO, the HR coordinator, and an external expert, as well as the Reeve and the Deputy Reeve. And further that the council approves the creation of the temporary, not exceeding 6 weeks, Deputy Director of Finance position ending in December 31st, 2021. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin moving. I have Anita seconding. Carson, it's all yours.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Councillor Van Hitterson,
Yes.
Councillor Palmer,
Yes.
Councillor McBurney,
Yes.
Deputy Reeve-Sight,
Yes.
Councillor Falconer,
Yes.
Councillor Heffer,
Yes.
and Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. 7.8.4 is the one that I've got a pecuniary interest, so I am going to leave the meeting and let Deputy Reeve-Sight take over. Thank you.
Okay, let me just move here. Okay, so we're moving on to the former Wingham Trailer Park property, the purchase and sale agreement. So there is a report, but I will let Dwayne talk to the report before a recommendation. I read the recommended motion and get a mover and seconder. Dwayne, go ahead.
Thanks, Deputy Reeves. So back in February, Council declared the Wingham Trailer Park lands as surplus to the needs of the municipality and authorized staff to proceed with the disposal in accordance with the township's sale and disposal procedures using the direct advertising method. Township staff issued an expression of interest, and in closed session at the May 17th regular meeting, Council received and discussed the expressions of interest. And in open session, directed staff to negotiate the terms and conditions of a purchase sale agreement with an interested purchaser. So staff have been in conversations and discussions with the interested purchaser and have prepared for council's consideration a purchase sale agreement. Just some notes of interest. In addition to the purchasers actually purchasing the property, they have also agreed to reimburse the township for all costs incurred for the completion of some studies, surveys, and reports that have been completed for the property. Again, and council's indicated in terms of looking for the property to be redeveloped for multi-unit residential development. In addition, the purchasers have agreed to secure at least one building permit for the property by May 31st of 2022. And if they do not secure that building permit by that date, the township reserves the right to repurchase the property. So we refer to it as a buyback clause, and basically that gives council assurances that if development of the property does not move forward, the council can repurchase the property back, and the purchase sale agreement is clear in terms of what we purchase back for, which is essentially what you'd be selling it for. In return, the township is agreeing to initiate and undertake the necessary official plan and zoning approvals to facilitate a multi-unit residential development on the property. And as well, we're also agreeing to undertake or provide the purchaser with a record of site condition. As council is aware, we've completed the environmental site assessment process. We've completed all three stages, stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. But what we need to do is file what we refer to as a record of site condition, which basically then gives assurances that the property is clear and appropriate for residential development. We know that's the case It's just more administrative in terms of actually filing that record of site condition. And in terms of selling this property for multi-residential development, in particular for permanent housing, you know, will certainly have a positive financial impact on the community as a whole. It will also provide additional economic benefits to local businesses, retailers, restaurant, grocery stores, banks, and gas stations on a year-round basis. Last but not least, in terms of it will generate additional tax revenue for the municipality and certainly provide housing. In terms of the proceeds from the sale of the property, the closing date is not until later this year, but just when we are discussing this as a council, there will be proceeds from the sale of property, and obviously there'll have to be some direction given to staff as to what occurs with those proceeds. In the short term, it's recommended that the funds be placed into reserves. And then at a future meeting, council may wish to consider how they wish to use those funds for the benefit of all ratepayers. So that's a conversation certainly, you know, in the future that we can have, but in terms of immediate short term, the Director of Finance does need some direction as far as what to do, and the recommendation is that we would just place that into reserves for the time being. That's all I have, unless there's any questions.
Is there any questions for the CAO?
Sorry, Deputy Ray, well, maybe mention that one of the purchasers is on the line, so if there's yeah.
Is there any questions for the CAO or the purchaser or anything? I'm assuming you would need approval from council to allow the purchaser to talk, but I'm sure that under the circumstances, we would be probably willing to, if we're going to ask a question, I'm sure we're happy to listen to them speak. So I'm not seeing any questions of council. So let me read. Just bear with me here. I hit it and then it moved. So the recommended motion is that the Council of the Township of North Huron hereby receives a report prepared by the CAO dated July 19th, 2021 regarding a purchase and sale agreement for the former Wingham Trailer Park property. And further, that Council adopt bylaw number 60, 2021, being a bylaw authorizing the Reeve and Clerk to sign on behalf of Council an agreement of purchase and sale between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron, which is the vendor, and J.E. Hodgins Lumber Wingham Limited and Precision Builders, who are the purchasers for the former Wingham Trailer Park property. And further, that council deems the adoption of the bylaw 60/2021 to be a time-sensitive matter and grants an exceptions to the 19.1 of the procedural bylaw, allowing bylaw number 60/2021 to be adopted at the July 19th regular council meeting. And further, that council directs the Director of Finance to put the proceeds from the sale of the property into reserves. Do I have a mover of that motion? I see Councillor Heffer moving and I see Councillor Faulkner seconding. Is there any questions, comments, or clarity on that motion needed? Councillor Palmer, you're asking a question? You're muted.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Reeve. I hope, I just see this, I like it. Okay, don't get me wrong, but I'm just wondering why the report is coming up as living wage analysis. That's how it's coming up with me. You know, it's just a curiosity thing.
Through you, Deputy Reeve, to answer Councillor Palmer's question, I'm assuming that's a glitch with eScribe. So a living wage analysis would have been a previous report that the CAO brought forward. But so if it's titled that somewhere, that would just certainly just be an error or a glitch with eScribe. Because I know on my end it certainly refers to it as the Wingham Trailer Park purchase and sale agreement. But I have seen it before where the system glitches and it pulls the titles of previous reports brought forward.
Okay, thanks.
Just to ask the question, Councillor Palmer, you've seen the report though, correct? Like it's the title of the report.
Excuse me?
It's the title of the report. You've actually seen the actual report though, correct?
Oh, I am seeing the correct report. It's just being titled as what I said. That's all.
Okay. I just want to make sure you've seen the report. That's all. I just want to make sure.
Yes, thanks.
Okay. So I'm not seeing any clarity questions or anything like that. So I will request the clerk to do the roll call, please.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve-Sipe. So Councillor Palmer?
Excellent. Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Wonderful, yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson?
Yes.
And Deputy Reeve-Sipe.
Yes.
So that motion carries 6-0.
Trevor, you're muted.
You're muted, Trevor.
Sorry about that. I was just saying I was hoping if the Reeve could hear us that he could, I'll give it back to the Reeve to finish the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very kindly. Okay, announcements. The next regular council meeting will be held on Monday, August 9th.
So Reeve Bailey, you're a bit ahead of yourself there. So you're down at 12 right now. Where there's no correspondence requiring action. So right now you're in at the Reeves activity report.
Well, we wouldn't want to miss that now, would we? Thank you very much. So the COVID-19 clinics are really going good. We've done between 2,800 and 3,000 people. I believe that the COVID way we're handling it right now will be done in September. So if it's possible, anybody that wants to get both shots, if they get into this Thursday or the next few COVID days, you can actually within 28 days get your second and last shot. And then after that, I believe we're going to have some pop-up COVID-19 clinics and that type of thing. So just keep that in mind that it is going well, but we are running out of time. It's not to say we're not going to have it. It's just going to be, I believe, after that, after the end of September, pop up and try to actually go to certain people and get them vaccinated if they want it. I think we've touched on everything else that I've been working on. Besides that, I just want to keep bringing that forward. What a fantastic time it is. So many volunteers, so many people coming from all over the place as well as our own area. It's just been a real fun group to work with. And I want to repeat what Neil Vincent said, former warden and Reeve of this township. This is why we have these places in case of emergency, whether it's a winter storm or a terrible fire somewhere or whatever. We're so proud of having this big building and making use of it and sharing it with everybody. I'm going to go on to 9.2, council members report, verbal and written updates from members who sit on boards. Is there anybody who sits on a board that would like to speak? And this should change in about a month because we're going to go back to having board meetings, aren't we? Not seeing any. Comments by member. Any comments, questions? Go ahead, Chris, and then Paul.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I attended Green's, I'm not sure what it was called, but it was Green's showing support for Greens, and they were customer appreciation. I guess that's the proper title of it. And it was really good to be there. Lots of people showing up. It was wonderful food. And it was just good to show support to these hardworking people. Thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Paul?
Yes, through you, Reeve. Yes, I just want to make a comment about a couple named Cam and Marilyn Robertson. They made a bench out for the trail out here, And it's already had people commenting how nice it is for the older people. When they go for a walk through the trails, they have a spot to sit down now. So I just say hats off to somebody just volunteered that. And thank you.
That's great. Trevor, did you have your hand up? I wasn't sure. Yep.
Yeah, Reeve, I just wanted to make comment. You know, as Councillor Palmer had indicated, it was you know, an excellent event of the Greens, kind of grand opening, customer appreciation, and just noting on you know, on social media that you know, that day alone, I remember it saying I believe they donated $4,000 to the North Huron Fire Department, I believe, is what I read. Maybe I misread it, but I think that's what it said. So I mean, even after you know, a significant you know, even after a significant thing, an event in that perspective, that they're still willing to give back to the community, you know, just bodes well for what this community is, regardless of what their address is and what they have. And you know, the people who provided support to them, and the residents of North Huron, you know, going to their place of business and helping and supporting them, I think only bodes well for the best you know, community that we have. So I did want to say that as well. And the last thing I did want to mention to council, and me and the Reeve sat in a meeting today with the Nuclear Waste Management Group, NWMO, as well as the CAO from the township of South Bruce. They are you know, just giving an update as to their helping information starting with studies that are going to be you know, done through the implementation of their, you know, 36 principles that they're trying to establish whether they're going to be the site selection. There's still two site selections that are going to happen. But what they're doing is they're looking for, you know, Huron-Kinloss, Brockton, North Huron to be a part of these studies. Safety, housing, agriculture, all these types of studies. They want some feedback from North Huron as it relates to what scope of these studies need to look like, so that they can make sure that they're incorporating everybody in the community, not just South Bruce, but people that are going to be, you know, directly related, directly responsible, directly impacted by this type of investment. If South Bruce was to be selected, they want to make sure that the communities around it are understood and have their feedback as well. So I did want to mention that me and the Reeve did have that meeting today, and I did make sure, and as the CAO was on as well, he was on the call as well, that I have said that at that meeting that council will be hopefully provided some information as it relates to, as these studies continue, before they are actually finalized, so that we can make sure that the scope of these studies can be, you know, fully encompassing of our needs or our wants or our thoughts, to make sure it's full encompassing on that selection process. So I just wanted to update council on that, because I think that is a long-term plan that is going to be, you know, the decision's going to come at the end of 2023. And then once that happens, that decision is made. It's a long-term commitment from a lot of the communities around it, not just the South Bruce municipality, but also the rest of the municipalities surrounding them. So just wanted to keep council apprised of what discussions me and Reeve are in, not necessarily discussions, but just meetings that we're having.
Thank you very much, Deputy Reeve Site. Anyone else? Go ahead, Chris. Oh, and then
Yes,
back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Reeve. It's just a question. It would be to you and Deputy Reeve. We've heard one side of the argument from the local people there, and I think we requested to hear from the South Bruce municipality itself. Is that in the works at all? Because I am very interested in hearing their point of view.
So just for some clarity, so we did take that direction from council, and the CAO, he did reach out to our neighboring municipality there, and I don't think anything has been set up yet, but they are certainly aware that North Huron is wanting to hear the other side.
Okay.
Part of our conversations today where timing and what's going to happen. So it's going to be another 5 years before this and this happens, another about 10 years before the whole thing really gets rolling, and then for the 10 years after that it will. So this is not something that's going to jump up on our face. And the people we were talking to today have sectioned it out, and they will come to us, but not everything at once, because as Trevor will tell you, it's like, holy cow, I was going to remember all this. So they're going to roll it out slowly. And if Trevor, you may want to follow up on this at the meeting today, but yes, they have it planned out, and they will be engaging us because we are their closest neighbor, and it is the closest to us in Brockton. So they want us to be very involved, is what we're saying. They want us to be very, very involved, but they do this for a living. They're professionals, and they will roll it out at a proper time so that we don't get something now in 5 years now go, I don't remember that. They're going to give it to us as we move forward and need to know. Trev, do you want to just touch on that?
Yeah, I think just to answer or to comment on Councillor Palmer, I mean, some of these studies and some of this stuff is going to go into the selection process. So, I mean, they're going to want, like, nothing has been guaranteed to anybody, either or Ignis or South Bruce at this point. So these studies and all that is going to be going into the selection process. So, I mean, they're wanting to do this part as to ensure that, you know, we are open and honest to understand what impacts this are going to have, social and economic stuff, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, South Bruce, the municipality is doing their due diligence with their consultants and all their peer reviews and stuff. They will be coming to this council to provide their feedback as Councillor Palmer's requested, or the council has requested. I mean, these are just other things that they want to make sure that council is going to be aware of, because it's going to be as part of the overall scheme of how the selection process is determined. And the last thing I wanted to mention, Reeve, is there is an just from a police services board conversation. We haven't had a police services board meeting for since COVID put us back in lockdown. I suspect that is going to reopen after our next August. We haven't determined when that is as of yet. But the one thing I did want to mention to the council here is one update as it relates to the location of satellite office per se, what the police service, the OPP here in detachment had requested some time ago. What has happened is at this current time, the Huron County OPP detachment has made an arrangement and an agreement with the Avon-Maitland School Board to have an office in the high school. That is what they have determined. That is the arrangement that they have made at this point and currently are working on. So it's not on the main street. It is in the municipality. It is not for you know, you're not going to have people going in and asking for service or anything like that. It is solely an administrative office to allow the OPP detachment staff to do their paperwork, not inside their vehicle. That's the intention. But I did want to mention that has been communicated to the Police Services Board. It has been communicated to myself. I don't think at the time I had mentioned it to council. I did want to mention it to council as part of the as part of that. So I did want to bring that back to council to let you know that has been, so hopefully with that arrangement, the whole discussion about a satellite office for the OPP will be gone from a discussion. I have not heard since it, whether it's been publicized or not, I don't know, but I know for a fact that I've only talked to one police service board member about it, and until we have a police board meeting, I have not heard anything from the public or police board members as to its positive or negative aspect of it.
Thank you very kindly. Anyone else? Not seeing anyone. There's no notice of motion tonight. Bylaws, bylaw number 58-2021, removal of the holding zone for 648 Glorious Street. Do I have a mover? I have Rick moving it. I have Kevin seconding it. I'll hand it over to you, Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that bylaw number 58, 2021, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 88 or 82, 2008, as amended of the Corporation of the Township of North Huron to remove the H holding zone on the lands known as Lot 14, Plan 22M13, 648 Gloria Street, Blythe, Township of North Huron, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, be signed by the Reeve Clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. So, Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes,
So that motion carries 7-0.
thank you. 11.2, bylaw number 59-2021, site plan control agreement with Housing and Housing Limited. Do I have a mover? I have Rick McBurney moving. I have Paul Heffer seconding. I will hand it over to you, Carson, when you're ready.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the motion on the floor is that bylaw number 59, 2021, being a bylaw of the Township of North Huron to authorize the Reeve Clerk to sign on behalf of Council a land use agreement between the Corporation of the Township of North Huron and Housing Limited be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, be signed by the Reeve Clerk, and be engrossed in the bylaw book. So, Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
Deputy Reeve Sight?
Yes.
Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes,
So that motion carries 7-0.
thank you. For 11.3, I'm going to recuse myself and have Trevor take back over. Thank you, Trevor.
Yes, thank you. So this one is the bylaw number 60, 2021, the purchase and sale agreement with J.E. Hodgins Lumber Wingham Limited and Precision Builders Limited, or LTD. That being a bylaw 60, 2021, being a bylaw to authorize the Reeve Clerk to sign on behalf of council an agreement of the purchase and sale between the corporation of the Township of North Huron, the vendor, and J.E. Hodgins Lumber Wingham Limited and Precision Builders Limited, the purchaser, for the portion of land legally described as Plan 410, Lot 367 to Lot 376, including Arthur Street and part John Street, County of Huron, be introduced, read a first, second, third, and final time, be signed by the Reeve Clerk and engrossed in the bylaw book. Do I have a mover? I have Councillor Heffer moving. I have Councillor Palmer seconding. Clerk Lamb, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Reeve Sight. So, Councillor Falconer?
Yes.
Councillor Heffer?
Yes.
Councillor Van Hittersum?
Yes.
Councillor Palmer?
Yes.
Councillor McBurney?
Yes.
And Deputy Reeve Sight.
Yes.
So that motion carries 6-0.
Okay, thank you very much. Announcements. The next regular council meeting will be held on Monday, August 9th, 2021 at 6 p.m. at North Huron Town Hall Theater. Live streaming will be available. The next Economic Development and Recovery Committee meeting will be held on Thursday, August 19th at 2 p.m. at the North Huron Town Hall. The next Wingham BIA Board meeting will be held on Thursday, August 19th at 6:30 at the Hot Stove Lounge at the North Huron West Cast Complex. The next Blythe BI Board meeting will be held on Thursday, August 26th, 2021 at 8 a.m. at the Blythe District Community Center. Other business, we have none. Closed session reporting out, we do with 3 items. That the Council of the Township of North Huron proceed at 8:39 into in-camera session closed to the public for discussions of the following: the purpose or pending acquisition or disposal of a land of the municipal or locally board Richard W. Levan Airport, expressions of interest, and litigation on potential litigation, including matters before administration tribunal, affecting the municipality and local board, update on the litigation matter, and a position plan procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiation carried out on or be carried on by, on behalf of the municipality and or a local board, cross-border services agreement. Do I have a mover? I have Kevin moving. I have Anita seconding. I'll hand it over to you, Carson.
Thank you, Your Worship. So Deputy Reeve Sipe. Councillor Falconer. Councillor Heffer.
Yes.
Councillor Van Hitterson.
Yes.
Councillor Palmer.
Yes.
Councillor McBurney.
Yes.
And Reeve Bailey.
Yes.
So that motion carries 7-0. So we'll close out of this open session meeting here and we'll move over to the closed session.
Did anybody want to have a 5-minute recess while we're waiting? Okay, I'm getting a lot of yeses, so we'll meet in 5 minutes.